Have the home prices hit a peak in Plymouth County? Will the home prices continue to rise? Is buyer demand dropping due to the rates increasing? Should you lock your rate now before it gets much higher? These are all the things I'm going to dive into today. Hi, I'm Jen Sylvester with RE/MAX Platinum here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And today I'm unpacking what is going on with the home prices in Plymouth and Plymouth County. Are we looking at the peak? How much further can these prices go up? And as the rates creep up, do we expect that buyer demand to back off? So I had a conversation with the parents of a buyer this weekend. The buyers are relocating from out of state, unable to go to the open house. So I met the buyer's parents. We went through the house, and afterwards we had a conversation. And, the buyer's parents, well-meaning for certain, are very concerned. They're concerned that the buyers are paying at the peak of the market. They're concerned that the market is going to change and the buyers will end up, overpaying for the property, and then they'll be digging out of the property for a few years. They won't be able to sell it and get their money back. And these are all valid concerns, especially from a parent. The parent doesn't want, their child to go through that kind of pain, especially, on the heels of the recession that we had back in 08, 09, through 2012 until we finally started to see some recovery. So if we look at the first question of whether we've hit the peak, have prices reached the highest point possible? Are the prices going to go up any further? What's going to happen the next, 6 months, 12 months, 18, 24 months? And in order to answer that question, we first have to look backwards at history to kind of see where we've been before we can look forward to the future. So if we first look at Plymouth County and what's going on from a grand scale, Plymouth County is, Weymouth all the way down to Cape Cod Canal out to Lakeville, Middleborough area down to Marion, Mattapoisett, that area. So if we look at that large area first to kind of see where the inventory is at, we can see, in terms of a year ago, we look at, last 5 years on this date, we can see the number of listings taken in 2018 was 1,017. 2019, there was a little bit of a bump up to 1,056. 2020, interestingly enough, 1,054. So very, very similar to 2019. And then there was a drop off to in 2021 to 771 homes on the market, and then 2022 644. So there's a progression there of less inventory coming on the market. The big thing to know, though, is that, even though there's less inventory, there's still the same number of buyers that are out there wanting to buy a home. And so that inventory, that's what helps the catalyst of homes that are getting sold quicker. If we look down at, median days to offer, how quickly does something go under contract? 5 years ago, 39 days, 40 days, and then you can see the drop off. 2020, 37 days, 2021, 10 days, and 2022, 8 days was the median, how many days to an offer. So with these lower inventory levels, it's going to take a long time for us to build that inventory back up. This is something that we have been working with, having to deal with for quite a few years. It's not something that's going to be solved by a bubble. It's not going to all of a sudden a flood of 1,000 homeowners are going to put their house on the market, flood the market, and then all of a sudden the prices are going to come crashing down because there's an excess amount of inventory on the market. That's just not realistic. One of the important reasons why the market crashed back in 06, 07, 08 was not because of the inventory. It was because of how accessible it was for buyers to get into that inventory. And that was what really caused the market to crash. Was the mortgage market was the catalyst for that real estate market coming apart, which is something that we just don't have today. Mortgages were readily available. It was very, very easy to qualify for a mortgage. And because of that, we had more buyers. Those buyers were coming in, they were financing, 90%, 95%, 98%, some of them 100%. So what happened is that equity shrunk, and these buyers got into these properties leveraged to the hilt with very, very little equity, very little room to move, so that when there was a little shift in the market, they were underwater instantly, which caused the whole thing to collapse. Now, fast forward to 2022, and this is one of the reasons why we will definitely see a shift, and I definitely see a softening in the market, but not negative equity. And for certain, I don't see the prices coming down below zero. I for certain see the price appreciation to come down a little bit. Maybe instead of double digits, we're going to go down to single digits. I think the experts can all agree on that. By the end of this year, we'll probably land at 4 or 5% appreciation, but it's going to be over zero. And one of the catalysts for that, on top of the qualifications of the buyers, is the amount of cash being infused into the market, the cash that the buyers are bringing to the table. These buyers are coming to the table with not 1%, 2%, 3%, but very often 5%, 10%, 20%. And the number of cash buyers that we have coming to the table is more than we've ever seen in the market, even with first-time home buyers. And I'll tell you, this is in my 25 years, I've never seen so many first-time home buyers coming to the table with cash. They've been saving cash. They've been saving this money all over the past, 5-10 years. They're getting into this market with some built-in equity right out of the gate. They've got an insurance policy coming into this property before they even sign the deed, to know that they've got that gap just based on their down payment. You might say, you know what, Jen, that sounds great, but I think we're going to wait. We're going to wait because there's so much going on in the country with Russia and Ukraine. Who knows what's going on with the mortgage market? And you know what? We're going to wait it out, because there's so many things on the internet that are causing us to say, you know what, or family members that are saying, you know what, maybe you should wait because we'll never know what's going to happen. And here is the danger. The danger is the money that you're going to lose especially as a first-time home buyer, the money that you're going to lose in equity by renting. So I came across this quote the other day. Real estate is one of the time-honored inflation hedges. It is a tangible asset, and those tend to hold their value when inflation reigns, unlike paper assets. More specifically, as prices rise, so do property values. This is so critical, because the one thing that buying a home will do is it hedges against inflation. Who knows what's going to happen with the war with Russia? Who knows what's going to happen with the national economy? Things are going to go up, and that's the cycle of how things are, right? Things will go more expensive and they'll come down. And right now we're on that upward trajectory. And as things become more expensive, it becomes more expensive to put gas in your car. It becomes more expensive to buy just groceries. The one thing that doesn't change is your mortgage payment. You lock in 30-year fixed mortgage, that payment does not change. If you are renting, you have zero control. That landlord could raise the rent. That landlord could decide to sell the property tomorrow. You don't have any control. It is not a fixed situation. You're not hedging against inflation when you're not in control of that payment. Whereas in real estate, you are. Not only are you in control of the payment, but you're also benefiting from the appreciation. So here's another way to look at it. If you are renting now, so say you are renting, and your rent is approximately $2,000 a month. Your yearly times 12 months, your yearly expense is $24,000. That is money gone. Done. Absolutely gone. You're never going to get that back. Conversely, if you owned a home, and say you made a down payment of $24,000, you will have been you'll break even by the end of the first year. If you were renting, you have $24,000 in equity in that first year that you would not have if you were renting. Now, this is not going to be a quick fix. Maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to hold out. If you're going to hold out and not buy now, you're going to hold out for a few years. So say you stay in that house for 2 years. You say I'm going to rent for 2 years. Well, guess what? The landlord decides to raise the rent. So now that rental amount went from $2,000 a month up to $2,200 a month. And at the end of the second year, you will have paid $26,400. Now, if you had owned a home, bought that home at the very beginning, and you add that on to your equity, that's $50,000 that you will have had in equity that you wouldn't have if you were renting. So if you were to look at a property and you're saying, you know what, I really want that property. There's a multiple bid situation. I'm going to overbid that property. I'm going to up my offer price to be able to get my foot in the door, and I'm going to offer $50,000, $75,000 over asking, or at whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you can afford. A lot of the pushback that sometimes I'm getting, particularly from parents, is, gosh, they're overpaying for that house. Well, are they really? Because if you rented, regardless of what the market does, if you were renting, you would be short 2 years in $50,000. $50,000 right out of the gate, you're saving. $50,000, even if the market completely stalls and doesn't appreciate and stays where it was, you're still in for $50,000 that you would have paid if you were renting. Now, I understand that there are a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration. What happens when the taxes go up? Depends on what type of interest rate you have, what type of mortgage you have. There's a lot of different factors that might make that number, swing one way or the other. But the bottom line is, you can't get away from the fact that, money renting is money thrown out the window. And even in this market, you're bidding up on the properties, you're still making an investment in yourself. And the reality of it is, all the experts are saying that this market is going to continue. I don't think it's going to continue at the same pace that we've seen. I think that, by the late summer, early fall, it's going to soften, maybe a little sooner, but we'll see. But I think it's going to soften to the point where we'll see appreciation shrink a little bit. So instead of, 50 people at an open house, there'll be 20. Instead of 20 offers or 10 offers, there'll be 5. It's still going to be a competitive market. It's still going to be, and I think that's here to stay for the foreseeable future. For certain that because of the inventory issue that we have, because we don't have the units coming on the market fast enough to satisfy buyer demand, then there's that appreciation is going to continue to go up. It's just not going to go up at the same appreciation rate that we've seen, over the last year, 18 months. So the last quick question that I wanted to touch on was, should you lock your rate now? I wanted to divert actually that answer to the live stream that I did with John Harrington last week. He talked in detail about what's going on with the mortgage market, what's going on with the rates, what potentially could happen with the rates. And I really think it's going to depend on every buyer's situation. You can't lock the rate. You shouldn't lock the rate until you have a property. And really, once you have a property, most likely you're going to lock your rate at that point. I would never recommend locking your rate, especially in this market, before you find a property. So the answers to the questions, have we hit the peak? I would say no. Can prices still go up? I would say yes. Asterisk, I think, is a question of how much and for how long, but I think we're still going to be on that upward trajectory. Is buyer demand dropping? No, it certainly has not. From what I saw this past weekend at the open house, the several open houses that I went to, the demand is still out there. Interest rates haven't affected buyers going out into the market, and nor will they. First, I've talked about this in other videos about the fact that buyers are motivated by their personal situation, not by the market. The interest rate will affect how they proceed with actually, fulfilling that goal of buying a home and moving and whatnot, but it doesn't prevent them. It just changes the trajectory of the home buying process. People will still be out buying homes. It's just a little bit different, in terms of what they're buying, how much they're spending, what price range that they're looking in. So I don't know that they're going to be bidding lower on homes necessarily, but maybe just looking at different price ranges. If they don't have a gap enough to look in the price range that they were in, they may have to move over to a different price range to give them that same gap for their offer. So make sure you check out the live stream I did with John Harrington last week. We had a great conversation about where the mortgage rates are, how buyers are operating, how buyers are getting qualified, what options they have. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.